Hello, and welcome to episode 158 of Quarkus Insights. And we've got a special today on Hibernate ORM 6.4 and what's new in that edition. And we've got a special guest, Christian, from the Hibernate team to tell us all about that. But I think before we go into that and before we do introductions with Christian, I think we've also got some news, which is very exciting because it means I get to push the news graphic.
That's true.
Used to push the news graphic. We've built a Q&A graphic too, which I have never remembered to push, but I do sometimes manage to remember to do the news graphic. Right, so now
Awesome.
and we've got news. Amazing.
Yeah.
It's like magic. So what's the news?
Well, the news is we have a newsletter. Well, no. Well, we have our normal releases, but I thought it would be interesting for those who don't know, we actually have a newsletter that you can sign up for. And when you get it this month, for example, it's all about AI and Quarkus. So there's a few blogs by our own Clement, who talks about how to integrate Quarkus with OpenShift AI. The actual article is independent of OpenShift AI, but it works with it. And then there's just Helbe here, who just shows the different ways we work with Quarkus and LangChain. For those who don't know, LangChain for Java is a is a project that tries to, well, not trying, it's actually succeeding in doing it. Is like providing access to all these different LLMs out there, whether they are on site like OpenAI or Azure or OpenShift AI, or if they're on premise and like local running models, and then have an API to access. And then what we've done is we've gone a step further. That we work with the LangChain team and made a Quarkus angle on it that makes it so we have metering and monitoring and all the goodness about native image and stuff is done in the Quarkus LangChain demo. So anyway, it was just another source of interesting articles about Quarkus. And then on top, we also have this little, we normally put a little piece of information, like we have this, what's that, like, feels like half a year ago or like around 3.2, we added into what we call dev mode, this telemetry that you can sign up for, or something. Like we ask you, do you want to submit data, anonymous data, and we can see like, okay, what version of Java is used, what version of Quarkus are they using, what's Quarkus extension are you using. We don't know like any internal extension. We don't see. It's just the IO Quarkus stuff we keep on. So just so we can see like are these actually being used and together with what. And one of the numbers we have this week is that which is basically, I think, is historically been the same spread. That so this is how many builds of Quarkus is using Maven versus Gradle. So this in February it was 82% of Maven and Gradle 15%. So Gradle is used, but Maven is used more. That's I think. So anyway, so if you want to make Gradle more popular, then please do for when you start dev mode and ask if you want to participate. Please send that, then we can see the data show up. So anyway, that was the news. Just to for those who are interested, they can go and look for that.
Cool. So, I can recommend signing up for the newsletter because it's got interesting stuff in it and it doesn't come too often, which is always nice.
Well, once a month or more, like about every 2 months. Like, yeah. Anyway, once a month or so. So it's there. Cool. That was it.
Cool. So I think we can go on to Christian now. So I guess before we start with your content, maybe you could tell us a bit about how you came to be involved with Hibernate and what you do with the Hibernate.
Oh, hi, first of all. Well, how did I get to Hibernate? I mean, I was, a regular developer at a company using Hibernate, and since it was open source, I gradually started contributing and got to a point where I was really good at Hibernate. So, there was one day where a job was open for the Hibernate core team, which I applied for, and that's how I got to the Hibernate core team.
Cool.
Well, that was easy.
Well,
I mean,
I think
that's a,
lots of people that work at Red Hat on
yeah.
open source.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of Red Hatters who have sort of similar origin stories of like, I was working with the product, and then I worked so much with the product that they just hired me because that just made it easier for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So what have you got for us with Hibernate 6.4?
Well, quite a lot actually. I was talking about Hibernate 6.2 and also 6.1 and 6.0 because we didn't do that sort of talk before in the context of Quarkus. So let me start here. So yeah, a little bit about myself. I'm working for Red Hat since 2020, and I'm also the creator of Blaze Persistence, quite popular library on top of Hibernate or JPA. Yeah, I'm based in Germany, Bonn, but I have been living in Austria, in Vienna before, and I'm still there quite often. So I'm originally Austrian, and I like to play tennis and go for a run from time to time. So yeah, that's all about me. I'm willing to share
I
for
like
now.
how it sounds that you're living in Vienna and Bonn simultaneously because you've got such a jet set lifestyle, and because that's not enough, you're also running while playing tennis because just running on its own isn't enough of a challenge. You have to have a ball involved.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I've been playing basketball in the past, but as you get older, knees start hurting, so
Ooh, yeah.
you have to reconsider. So, tennis is probably not the best sport for looking for workouts after basketball, but still, I like it. So, yeah. All right, so let's get started. Just a quick recap because last time I've been talking a little bit about Hibernate ORM 6.2, and there's a few noteworthy things that I've been discussing last time. And one of those things was the struct support or JSON and XML support in terms of using that as an embeddable, because that actually gives you, access to the individual data parts and not just considering that JSON or XML or what have you as a blob and be able to work on it and on the Java side, but also you have access to the individual data points on the querying side, which is quite nice. Yeah, well, the Java record support, which got better now in 6.5. We added support for ID classes as well. That was a open topic before. Then we unified our value generation, so there is no more distinction between, generating a current timestamp with special annotations or having a special identifier generator. That's all in the same infrastructure now, and we're actually driving to make these binders, that's what we call them, more accessible in more situations. So you will see lots of annotations are actually not special anymore, but rather they have just special binders pre-annotated. And every user can leverage that as well to make Hibernate or their use of Hibernate more effective.
So I just someone here that says like, "Well, Hibernate support records," and I like
Oh
Hibernate
yeah.
supported records since records existed, maybe almost. What's the new thing?
Well, you have to clarify that supporting records is, that's a big promise. It's
Yeah,
actually supporting records for embeddables,
yeah,
because embeddables have this value semantics, whereas entities have identity, and records, since they cannot be mutated, they do not fit that sort of idea of.
yeah.
So you just cannot really make entities records with the existing JPA lifecycle model.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's records. I mean, that's not something new, but I'd like to advertise it more and more because people still use Lombok and people like the consciousness or the conciseness, sorry, of being able to just spell the constituent parts. And I think records is just the perfect tool for typing less, typing just the important things, but you can still use your JPA model. Yeah. So yeah, that's records. Since when? I think since 6.2. Yeah, pretty
So
sure.
yeah, so the new thing is that it supports the embeddable as a key, and Hibernate has always supported records as a thing it can return from its queries, but
Oh,
not
right.
entities.
Right.
This is I think this is what Stupentius follows 65 might be. He's like, oh, we can, because people think they always say, oh, Hibernate should support records, and we're like, yeah, but do you know what a record is? It's something you can't mutate, so you can't be a thing that changes like a value, right? So,
Exactly.
so yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So another thing that is noteworthy in 6.2 is table partitioning. So we're just shipping with an annotation that allows you to mark which columns are part of the table partitioning scheme. So it's not like it's very sophisticated in DDL terms. We're not trying to generate partition by range, partition by hash, and whatnot in the create table statements. That's still up to the developer to do. But we have now the tools to be able to say, hey, when we do an update because of an entity flush, then we will include your partition key in the query if possible. And usually for entity flushes, that is possible because we know the old state. And that helps the query planners to decide, okay, which partition should I choose ahead of time instead of having to look into all of the partitions to find a row potentially. And yeah, if people are interested in more of these table partitioning features, then we have a vibrant community. We have a discourse forum. We have our Zulip chats where people can interact with us. Just tell us about it. We need user feedback, user input on the features that we should develop for the next versions. And then finally, the biggest noteworthy potentially new feature is the support for the merge statement. It's not as great because this was just the backbone implementation so far in 6.2. This will change with future versions, and we're going into the direction of Upsert as well. But so in 6.2, we started with the backbone, which is on the SQL AST side, we support this merge statement. So we know how to spell this sort of insert, update, delete semantics. And yeah, in the future versions, you as a user will be able to define that in HQL as well. So yeah, that's a quick recap of 6.2. That is what I was trying to explain last time. And now we have 6.3, which there was no Quarkus release with 6.3 itself, but rather Quarkus switched to 6.4 directly. And in 6.3, we got quite a few annotation processor related new features. So I will show a few examples in a few minutes, but let me just give you a quick overview. The annotation processor knows what a repository or a DAO is more or less, so you can start using that pattern with your code when you're using the annotation processor, and it will generate that code for you ahead of time. We have some tools to make querying easier with the criteria definition. So this is this allows you to create a class, an anonymous class per query, which some people might say is not the best way to write queries, but nevertheless, we wanted to try out this new incubating API, make it easier to write JPA criteria queries. And we also have the criteria query from HQL. So people always asked us for, what's the best way to write queries? Should I use HQL or should I use criteria API? And criteria API is clunky because you have to spell a lot of things. You have to do all of that ceremony. And HQL is nice and concise, but it's static. You cannot have like dynamic filters and stuff. So we thought, how about we, since at the end of the day with Hibernate ORM 6, we started to use a unified AST, that is the SQM AST, semantic query model, which is used for both criteria query and HQL. So at the end of the day, when you give us an HQL statement, we compile it to that SQM AST, which can be seen as a criteria query as well. So now with 6.3, we started offering the possibility to obtain that criteria query from that HQL. So you can start off with some static HQL, concise, and then add dynamically some filters on top of it. We also started to go into the direction of upserts, like I was saying before with the merge statement support. And stateless session received that first because an upsert is more natural to a stateless session concept. When you compare the stateless session to a stateful session, the standard JPA model, then there's much more going on in the stateful version. It has cascades and stuff, so it's not that easy to make use of upsert there. And
Christian, sorry,
yeah.
what is an upsert?
Oh, sorry, I thought that was common knowledge.
Well, hopefully it is for everybody else watching, but it's new to me.
Yeah. So upsert essentially is an update or insert, depending on whether the target's unique key constraint is violated or not.
Got it.
So the statement just ensures that at the end of the statement there will be a row for your unique key constraint.
Yeah, it basically means you avoid having to do a query up front. Like you assume like exactly. I need a row that has Holly in here with this address updated, right? And then you don't care if you're the one creating or something else done it. So you do that.
Yeah, I guess the most prominent example would be a counter, even though I don't know if it's very useful, but you try to update the counter, and if there is no row for that counter yet, then you just insert it with 1, and otherwise, increment.
Got it. Yeah.
And then we also have a revamped documentation. So there's new documentation sections. Existing documentation sections have been improved a bit. But yeah, it's an ongoing process, but it's still noteworthy because we have a new sort of introduction chapter, which hopefully people that now get into ORM will rather start learning from, because our existing user guide organically grew over the years and is more like a reference documentation. It's like everything there is listed in there. There's no sort of tutorial kind of style. And that's what the new documentation introduction should hopefully improve on.
Also, like the 6.3 release, that like there's 2 features here I'm really happy. Well, all of them are great, but there's more attention on stateless session and the DAO support is the technical favorite ones for me. But the docs, I'll just say that one is because I reviewed some of that stuff, and it's like a brief like. I was around when Hibernate was around, like started up 20 years ago, and we had documentation that was like, let's call opinionated and said how things worked. But as Chris says, it just evolved over time, and all those like how to use things kind of it was still there, but it's like there's a big distance between it. So if you read the Hibernate docs in the last 10 years or even longer, I recommend to go read the first one because it's quite good, and it also explains why something like JPA exists and why it's important and why stateless session is important also. Like it's highly recommended. It's a good stuff. It's interesting to read. So
all right. And then there's 6.4, which has a few features.
Sorry, Christian. Before you go on to 6.4, we've got a question on the 6.3 docs and where people should be looking for it.
Yes. Let me just minimize that quickly because I have it open here.
Cool. It's like you anticipated the question.
Yeah. So I can send the link. I don't know if you can share it
Yeah, if you
afterwards.
yeah, we can paste that into the chat because I think nobody's going to be reading that on that screen, unfortunately.
Yeah. So it's Hibernate_introduction HTML. It also covers, lots of the different mappings, and obviously it's not that extensive as the existing user guide, but it covers the most important topics, I would say. And it's like I said, it tries to give this on-ramp sort of information. Yeah.
And also, it also doesn't talk about the stuff that, yes, it exists, but you shouldn't use it. Like many relationships or certain forms of locking and stuff is just like they are in the reference, not in the introduction. So
Right. Yeah.
and also it highlights the importance of you should still know what SQL is. Like this is what one of the biggest critique we always get. Hibernate is trying to hide SQL and therefore it's bad. And we're like, no, Hibernate was there so you can focus on the hard SQL and all the stupid stuff that a machine can figure out. Let's Hibernate deal with that. So yeah, it's a documentation we should have written many years ago when we knew all the things we knew today. We should have written back then.
Yeah, it's always a matter of priorities. when do you what?
I don't think we could have written it back then. It was just it's the collection of realizing, okay, people assumes a lot of stuff. They use it. So yeah.
Right. And now we come to 6.4, which has finally gotten soft delete support. We saw so many people over the years trying to use filters and SQL restrictions to more or less emulate soft delete. So we decided to finally implement that as a first-class citizen. And I hope it paid off. We got some bug reports, so people tried migrating, and I hope they're still using it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like it's very nice to see that people are using it, and it appears that this was the only use case for filters or SQL restrictions, because we didn't receive any other feedback from people saying no, that's not the case.
Soft delete is just where there's a specific annotation to say when you delete, didn't just toggle flag instead, or how is it?
Exactly. Yeah. So usually people used some sort of SQL restriction to say, okay, only give me entities that are deleted equals false, right? Or they use the SQL update annotation to tell, or the SQL delete annotation, sorry, to tell Hibernate, hey, please, when you try to delete that, instead run this statement, which usually was like an update statement that just says, okay, toggle the flag. And now all of this is streamlined into that soft delete annotation.
So Subinder Follow says that he seems to have been using it. But he says it solves the same problem as before, which I'm not sure. It's like that he says you can't turn it off. So he wants to do a hard delete.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we usually tell people to use native queries in that case if they want to do, a hard delete, or, I mean, we don't know the use cases yet, right? So if I cannot read that name, sorry. So if you user, please could join our community and tell us about your use case. We can gather these use cases and maybe think of some extensions.
Yeah. And I'll say the same as you. Like you can always just do the hard delete, but with a native query if you want to. But yeah. So,
right.
Cool.
Another big thing which I worked on is array functions. So Hibernate knows about SQL arrays since ORM 6.1, I believe, but we still lacked functions or the means to access the individual elements, or try to create arrays or concatenate them, whatnot. And all of these functions have been added with 6.4 now, so you can really make use of your arrays on the database side. And yeah, people are using that. We've got tons of bug reports, smallish bug reports. I fixed most of them already. But yeah, still, it's nice. Hibernate is progressing.
So
And
array function, is that just function that takes arrays as input, or
right, so you can have individual elements and construct an array out of that, or you can concatenate two arrays together, or remove elements from the array, insert elements into the array. It's just the basic operations.
got it.
Yeah. And another thing that people always cried out about loud was the creation of the count query. So there seems to be a lot of people that relied on some unfortunate implementation detail of ORM5, which was that you could just reuse your existing query nodes that you created with JPA criteria and use that in a new query and just create a derived count query from that. So it was very involved, and the problem is that the object instances are just not intended to be used in that fashion. So there is an obvious solution to that. You need to copy the whole query again and use the intended objects. But I saw that lots of people were using that broken idiom. So I decided, let's do it. Let's create a proper count query in Hibernate, derived from an existing query. And Gavin King took that even further. He's also adding that feature to the annotation processor now, so you can also use that in your repositories. And yeah, overall, I mean, that's a very nice feature. People have been trying to use that and implementing kludges to make that work in the past. And finally, there is a first-class citizen in ORM as well. Then we have JFR events, which like right after this slide, we'll start the demo, promised. And I'll immediately start the JFR collection so we can see across throughout the demo what sort of queries we have been running. And vector similarity search is something that I will show you next week, because AI should be a dedicated topic. It's very important these days. So yeah, without further ado, let's go to the demo. Let me just switch over to my IDE, if I can find it. There it is. I hope you can all see it.
Yep.
Nice. So let's start off with the annotation processor. So we have a customer repository here. And the customer repository is just a regular interface. And this regular interface is only special because it has a method annotated with @find. And this @find is one of the new annotations of Hibernate ORM. I can show you where it's located here. It's part of Hibernate core. There's also @HQL and @SQL annotations, which they accept a string value, of course, the query itself. Same for SQL. And you can annotate methods with these annotations here. And Hibernate, the annotation processor, will figure out by what you want to filter based on the names of the parameters. The return type is very flexible. We have support for returning the entity type itself or a list. You can also return a query. And in the future, there will be maybe support for optional. And, people, please just ask for these types and we'll add support for them. Right. And I'll show you the implementation in a sec, although I think I have to go there by myself because IntelliJ does not know about this implementation, the class path. There it is. So you can see that the implementation tries to make use of the existing find implementation if possible, or it will also use the binatural ID API if possible, and only switch to a query or JPA criteria API if needed. And another special thing about this kind of style is that this class has a method session. The name actually doesn't matter. It's just the return type that matters. Abstract, of course. And this indicates like what is the driving access kind of data source, so to say. Yeah, so you can use either session or stateless session or entity manager. And the implementation that is generated will use constructor injection here with the inject annotation, and then use that session, expose it as well. And then all the implementations here will just make use of that data source, so to say. Right, and another thing that I can show you, I'll just create a temporary one, customer temp repository. And now we can play around with this here. So the HQL annotation, for example, we can use HQL, and IntelliJ is actually nice in that regard because it supports validation as you type. So you could write from customer C, where C ID equals ID. And another interesting thing here is that the validation that the annotation processor does is also very nice, because let me write that wrong here. So let's say I write ID2, and if I compile that now, the annotation processor will say, okay, so there is no query parameter for ID because that's the name of the parameter here. So you don't need these clunky annotations to be able to transfer the name of the source code into the implementation. Since this is an annotation processor, it has access to the name of the parameter and can make use of that in a reasonable way. So what about we change that to ID2? Then the annotation processor will work for some reason. That's unexpected. It should actually choke unless I have a. Oh, sorry, it's just a parameter. Of course, if I had used the find approach, it would choke. Of course, this is just a query. But if I had used find, it will say, hey, I could not find an attribute named ID2 on that entity. So yeah, here you can see it's using the parameter name to infer the attribute by which it should filter. And in case that attribute is an embeddable, I do not have an embeddable.
Remember to zoom in, Christian.
Sorry?
Just remember to zoom in. The font is very small.
Oh, sorry.
No, I like this is the code. Like this, I saw this when Gavin and Steph was looking at this stuff, because we've been asked multiple times, should we not have like Spring has this like where the method defines your query, and it's nice for basic stuff, but as soon as you want to do a bit more, then it gets parsed, like it gets massively long.
Indeed.
By able to say, hey, I want to find, then you just like basically people who are used to Spring Data is like, oh, the method names matters. No, you can call it anything. Like, what matters is the annotation and the types and names of the parameters.
Exactly.
Just you can call it whatever you want it to be. And yeah, this allowed that. Like, this is really cool. Like, I didn't know that IntelliJ had all this stuff built in now. The validation, not validation. That they supported the content assist. Is that in the free version or in the ultimate version?
I actually never know because I'm using the ultimate edition.
Okay. I think it's ultimate.
I think it's ultimate, yeah.
So, yeah.
Right. But let's see. I mean, let's change that to stateless session so you can also see how that works. What does it say? Get reference. Okay, yeah, I'll just remove that for now.
And reminding you, we are on this stuff is already. This is in Quarkus 3.7, right? Yes, it must be 3.7. We had the
Yeah. It's ORM 6.4, so it's part of Quarkus 3.7. Sorry, yeah.
yeah. And I was, by the way, this is the feature that gets in Quarkus Dev. We added until this feature was there, we didn't have annotation processors as part of the recompile of hot reload. Not at least not consistently. Now it's there, so this enables this kind of stuff in Quarkus too. So
yeah. So this is also very nice. You can also specify that you want a typed query as a return, and then you'll get the typed query. Or criteria query, I think also works. Although I'm not sure entirely. No, it doesn't, unfortunately. But that might be nice. Maybe someone can suggest that.
Type query, is that a new thing, or is that a new type?
Well, no. I mean, it's there since 6.4, I believe.
Yeah, but 6.4 is new. I'm saying type query is a new thing, right?
Well, no, that's part of the Jakarta Persistence API.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. So this is the build query, so to say. You can still parameterize it, or
got it.
Yeah. There is some extensions that allows to add the ordering, or you can, of course, do pagination with set max results or set first result.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to include the pagination into this contract. But we'll see about that contract in a few seconds, about the pagination stuff. But there's one more thing I'd like to show you, which is you don't have to use this method, this special method that returns session or stateless session. You can also remove that, and then you'll get some special class, which will additionally also expect an entity manager. And with that entity manager, that's like all static methods. You can just ease your creation or result retrieval this way, if you're already using the entity manager in a different context. Okay. Let's see. We still have the statistics repository, which I also wanted to show you guys. Here you can see I'm using the free quotes. That's the multi-line string feature, preview feature, I think, of Java 21, which is also quite nice because here you can see the code highlighting of IntelliJ. And of course, it obviously also supports auto-completion. So the ultimate license definitely pays off in that way. It lacks a few features here and there. You see the with clause here is not properly supported yet, unfortunately. But overall, yeah, it's pretty nice with these HQL annotations. You can have all of that code right there. You don't have to externalize it.
That's so much better.
Right. Let's see how to create a criteria query from an HQL query. I think find all by query, that's the one. I like using var, as you can see. So if you're unsure about the types, just ask. All right, so here you can see I'm having this static query, which is not very complicated. It's just using a joint fetch here for the variants and ordering by the product ID. But, to showcase it, this creates a criteria query. And after that, we get the root of that criteria query and apply some additional filters here. And the filters are not very interesting, but that's like the prime use case, I think, which people often look for. So yeah, you can mix and match as you like. The criteria definition is the next nice thing I'd like to show you, which is here. And you can see an idiom that is not very well received in the Java community, double brace idiom, I think it's called, which is essentially just saying, hey, create. So the first brace is for creating an anonymous class, and the second brace is telling the Java compiler, hey, this is an instance initializer block. And what this does is this creates a special purpose class which will initialize itself when creating the instance, and it initializes by calling from, and then on that the fetch method and the where method to construct the query. And I'm kind of bothered that this does not show nicely, so let me quickly add that to the sources. Marcus sources. It should go away, please. It does not go away. Okay, it compiles because it runs. I can show you that in a few seconds, but yeah, we have to live with the red color. Yeah, so you can use that if you like that sort of query style. We're still trying that out. This criteria definition is marked as incubating. So this might go away if people are not telling us that they like it and they use it. So please speak up if you're a fan of that or not. Next up is caching.
Before you go to the caching, we've got another question about about the filters. So speaking of filters, is there any way to enable a Hibernate filter for every session? Can we hook open session in Quarkus somehow to do it, or is there some other way?
Enabling a filter for every session. Well, I mean, if you want to do that, you could create your custom session CDI producer. I think that should be possible. And before returning that session, you enable that filter like yearly. That would be one way to do it. But apart from that, I don't think there is a way to do that.
There was in old times the interceptor could do stuff, but I guess that couldn't. That's too late, I guess. But,
yeah, I would have to look into it, but I'm pretty sure the only way to do it would be.
Oh, he says, can we hook open session in Quarkus? Oh, sorry, no, I get it. Okay, so he wants where when Quarkus hands out a session to you, can you configure that session before the user gets it? You can do a session producer, I think.
Right, that's what I was suggesting.
Yeah, that would be the way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't actually tried, but it should work. Yeah.
Famous last words.
Yeah, but basically anything you can inject that is default by Quarkus or the system, you can make your own producer, and as long as it doesn't conflict on types, that will win. Right? So you can, yeah. So that should work. But yeah.
And we've got another question about are there any structure project skeletons with Quarkus Reactive with Hibernate Reactive?
Any structure?
So I think this might be just the quick starters.
Yeah, if you go from Quarkus, code Quarkus, and just say Hibernate Reactive, or use the quick starts, they will work. I'll just say the thing here. Please make sure you read the docs and our insights about Hibernate Reactive. Hibernate Reactive is there if you really need reactive programming for Hibernate. But we have almost weekly, we have someone asking about a question of Hibernate Reactive, and we talk to them like, why are you using Hibernate Reactive? It turns out, because we use Rest Easy Reactive. And like that, you can use blocking classic Hibernate with Rest Easy Reactive. There's no problem with that. Yeah. Anyway, the skeleton is the default, but make sure you actually need Hibernate Reactive when you use it.
All right.
Cool.
So the pagination aspect that I've been talking about before is showcased here. So you can have these special types page. It's a new type in Hibernate Core, which is similar to page request in Spring. Contains the size and the number of
Zoom in,
pages you want. Sorry?
zoom in, bigger
Zoom.
fonts.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So it's just a size and the number of the page that you want. Very similar to the page request. And you can add this as a special parameter to your, let's call it, repository methods. And the implementation, the annotation processor will apply the information from that object onto the query that it generates. And similarly, there is a new type order. Let me zoom in here as well. There's different overloads for creating that. So you can create the order for a singular attribute or by attribute name. I think you can also use a positional ordering. Theoretically, it should also be possible to use an expression, but I think the main idea is to have that be something that comes from an HTTP endpoint. And so this is more or less the replacement for the Spring data sorting and ordering in terms of this Hibernate annotation processor. And you can pass that as a list here. And let's look at the implementation once more. So this is a subscription. And as you can see, there's nothing fancy here. It will just, set first result from the page, set max results from the page, and call this special set order method, which allows to change the order of a query after it has been built. All right. So that's for pagination. And then there is the absurd support, which is not very spectacular, but the query will be nice in a few seconds. So just calling absurd, that's the new method. And now let me switch over to the examples before we lose track of that. Let's try it out. So here we have a customer.
Sorry, can you make that one bigger too?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
The screen is always smaller than you think it is when it's going over a stream.
Indeed. Right. So customer one has no credit card so far. So let's try out this put endpoint here to add an actual credit card. I don't know what the format was, but I think it's like always 4 numbers. Let's see, execute. And of course it doesn't like that. Why not? Oh gosh, maybe it doesn't like the dashes. Value too long. Oh, I'm sorry. It just accepts 3 characters. I made it simple. Okay. That looks like oh god, it uses JSON. I'm actually not that on top today. So let's say Christian here, and this is the CSC code, the security code that every credit card has. And now it works, of course.
Yay!
The CSC code obviously only has 3 characters. So, but if we look for the credit card now, we will finally find it. But what is interesting here now is the query that is generated. And here we had the merge statement. Let me just copy that out and give you a snippet. All right, that does not work. Let's do it like this. So as you can see, it's a merge into statement that is used for this upsert, and just listing all of these individual attributes. And when it's not matched, so means when there's no row with that number, then it will insert with these values. And when there is an existing value, then it will just update the security code and just all of the data that is updatable in terms of the entity configuration. So yeah, that's the nice thing about upsert. All right, so next up, the soft delete support. So we have the profile for this. Okay, so I have this profile HTTP endpoint which has this delete method, and customers are annotated with @softDelete, if you can see that. So the default behavior of soft delete is to use a deleted strategy. That means there's a deleted flag indicating when it's true that it's deleted. Oh, sorry. There must be a way to zoom in on all files. Anyway, there's also the possibility to have a converter if people want to use different sorts of representations on a database for the deletion. Maybe sometimes people want to use an integer or whatever. And we only have these two strategies, active and deleted, or deleted types. So one means that deleted is true, and the other means that active is the true value. And so it just is a matter of what is the true value. What does it mean? And depending on that, it will respectively filter. Okay, so let's try to remove a customer and see what the queries are that we're generating. Product profile. Let's delete my profile. And there we go. It was okay. And as you can see, it just sets the deleted flag to true. And it also filters for the fact that this is not deleted. So every time we query for something that is soft deleted, it will also check that the deleted flag is false in that case, since it's using the deleted soft delete type.
Is there an undelete operation?
There is not at the moment, no. And I guess that's also what that one user was asking about. There's no way to hard delete or undelete maybe. Yeah, I mean, usually we tell people to use a native query if they want to do that, but
Sure.
when you're hard deleting something, then it's gone as well. So why would you want to do, in terms of ORM functionality, that sort of hard delete or undeletion? That's usually something that should only be done in terms of an administrative task.
I guess it's just to avoid having to write the query, basically.
Maybe, yeah. But yeah, I can see that people want to clean up. They want to remove old data, and that's fine. But then just write a native query, right?
And we've got another question as well about why was the fix existing association joins with the extra on conditions not made optional when migrating to Hibernate 6? So I think, I don't know if this needed a bit of context. That was a while ago.
Why was the fix existing association joins with extra on conditions not made optional? Not exactly sure what that user is referring to.
I think he's probably just been updating, and he had a lot of those. Yeah, I know there was some stuff, a lot of stuff changed between Hibernate 5 and 6, but a lot of those things were deprecated, or the query stuff being more strict. Basically, there was stuff we we assume, oh, you're missing this keyword. We just assume you do something. I think that's what you're referring to. So Andrew, if you can give us a more specific example, that'll be good. But
Yeah.
it's maybe just missed. By the way, I saw Stupendous here saying that maybe sometimes you want to query hard deleted rows as well. That one, I'm not sure he thought. Well, that's the tricky part. If you are going to query hard deleted rows, you will get entities that might conflict with what you want in the session state. So what actually happens if you do that today, Christian? If you do a native query that returns back, let's say, persons, and it includes the soft deleted ones, and I take the soft deleted ones and I modify them, will it fail, or will it let it do it? Or
Well, if you look at the update statement here, you see that it contains this filter for deleted equals false. So in case you're loading with a native query something into an entity that is already deleted true, then an update would fail. So you would get an optimistic lock exception if you try to do that.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, please come with your use cases, and we will think about something. There will be a way. Okay. Then, I forgot to attach my JFR thing here. So I have JDK mission control running here. And let me just start flight recording. Continuous recording. Let's see. All right. So next up, we will look at array functions. And for array functions, I have the product resource, product repository. Exactly. Okay. So you see my product here has, or actually it's not the product, it's, I think, the product variant. It has...
And it needs to be bigger so that we can see.
Oh, I changed the font size. Like the Stupendous follow was writing, but apparently it did not work. At least not for the code, it seems. Okay, so let's find that array. There it is, product. Product has tags. And you see, I mean, IntelliJ is not showing it nicely. It says that the basic attribute type should not be a container, but this is supported. So if anyone from IntelliJ is watching, please fix that. This is valid now. So this is essentially saying, hey, I have an array of string on the database side. And what we want to do with the filtering is we want to be able to find products with some tags. And the current implementation, let's see, product filters. So what we're using right now is we're using collection contains all. So we're asking for products that have all of these tags. Let's see what the current products are, so everyone is on the same page. Products, try it out. And here we can see we have tap water, and tap water has... Oh, we're not showing the tags actually, but I have the data. So that's static data, so we can find out what the tags are. But let's quickly find that data. So tap water is a drink. It's healthy and it's sugar-free. Then we also have juice, which is also a drink and healthy, and rum, also a drink, but it's alcohol. So let's find drinks. And now we can see the tags contain drink, and there is tap water, the juice, and rum is also a drink. And if we look at the query, we will see this strange PostgreSQL operator, because that is what we're using for checking that an array contains another array fully. And we can play around with a few different operators in a few seconds. But
which database support this thing? Postgres and
arrays.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think H2, HSQL, PostgreSQL. Oracle,
yeah.
And I think that's it, actually.
Yeah.
Because we have support for serializing arrays in terms of I don't know, JSON or XML.
Sure.
But we don't have the means to emulate all of these array functions yet for these different encodings.
Yeah.
But at some point we're gonna add support for JSON functions and XML functions as well, also for these databases that use JSON or XML respectively as an encoding format for arrays. And at that point we can also register the emulations, and then you can just use arrays and not worry about the fact if your database supports it or not natively, because it will use some means that is very similar to
But right now, like if you run Postgres or Oracle, then like I can see a lot of code I could delete by just using this now.
Yeah, and I mean it's also more performant because arrays sounds like such a basic feature, but if you're having a product search like I'm showing here, it's actually very significant to be able to have these composite types that can contain multiple values, and being able to like filter with an index, because usually when you spread out that information into different rows that you have to join first, then you're losing out on some index efficiency, because to find out if a product is even if a product should be considered as a search result, you first have to do the join, and then maybe some bitmap nested loop join, whatever the databases do there, and having that in here and being able to use an inverted index definitely speeds up all of that searching. So yeah, if you are doing search masks, you're probably already using arrays, but now you can stop using native queries and rather use ORM arrays directly.
Oh, very nice.
Okay. Yeah, so this is one function. That's the array contains function. And I think now it's time to try a different one, because you can see CB here refers to Hibernate Criteria Builder. And we tried to model all of the array functions also in that Criteria Builder extension. And there's two flavors, actually. So one is working on collection types, and the other is working on native array types. And since I mapped the tags here as a set, I'm using the collection flavor. And what else can we do? We can check if for contains all. I mean, we will definitely gonna need to use like this all sort of suffix, because we have multiple tags that we might want to filter with. But what we could do is we could use an overlaps, and that means we want if both sides, the search sides and the fact side have elements, then as soon as there's one match between those, then that would be an overlap. That would be a different sort of filter. So we don't require that all of the search tags are contained in the tags of a product, but rather that they just overlap in some term. So let's try that. Overlaps.
So
you want to ask something? Yeah?
No, I just said zoom in on the code.
Oh, sorry. It's there must be a way. I already used 22. Editor. Where is the editor? Code editing font. There it is. Size. Give me 23.
And there's a suggestion as well that, in your settings, if you search for zoom rather than the font size, that will
Indeed. Okay, so yeah, let's use collection overlaps. And so if we use just drink again, and now it's doing hot reloading, then we will still see tap water, juice, and the rum because it's all a drink. But if we rather use, I don't know, ABC, then there will be no overlap, so it's empty. But if we also use alcohol, then you will see rum is included because we're using overlaps now. And how does that look on the query side? Well, there's this special ampersand operator that PostgreSQL uses, and that's the overlaps implementation. So yeah, there's a bunch of different operations that you can try out. You can see there's remove operation, remove index, slicing, appending, concatenation, whatnot. So I hope everyone's happy with the selection of array functions. But if not, please complain.
So we actually had a question like this was where is best to place these use cases? I created your issue, but there doesn't seem to be much response. Would Zulip be better?
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. Try creating a Zulip topic. There you can discuss it immediately with all of the people. I guess Discourse is also fine if you prefer a forum with asynchronous communication. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, and I think now we're at the point where we can show some JFR events. Let me just... Do I have to stop it somewhere? Am I still attached? Okay, this did not work. Let me start a fresh recording and do some queries just to show you a little bit. And now we have a recording. Huh. Maybe I did something wrong. Anyway, there it is. And now we have an event browser, and we have special events, Hibernate ORM events. And for now, we thought, let's do some obvious ones like session open, session closed. Then you know how long the acquisition took when it happened. And there's also always the session identifier around. So you can correlate all of these events and understand like what happened within which session. And then there is prepared statement creation and prepared statement execution. And here you can nicely see how long each statement took. So the creation is usually a few microseconds, but the execution might differ. And we can also see the statements here. So, this is using this ampersand operator, but with different parameterizations. And if you have other ideas for events, we just started with these events. I mean, there's even this problem of us also recording the start time sometimes, which is not necessary apparently with JFR, because it seems JFR is recording the start time and end time automatically. So yeah, we still have to learn.
Do you just have to enable JFR, or do you have to enable the events, or how does that work?
That's a good point. Let me show you in the IDE. So all you have to do with Gradle, but it's very similar with Maven, is to add the Hibernate JFR module. And as soon as that is on the class path, the JVM, or at least OpenJDK or hotspot-based JVM, will detect those JFR objects or event types, and then you can attach with Java Mission Control to your JVM. And here you can actually also see all of the events. I don't know if you can see it nicely because it's very small for you, probably.
Yep.
But I cannot zoom into that one.
Yeah.
It's Eclipse. Sorry.
Yeah, people can use their imagination.
Yeah, I mean, you can configure every event. Like, do you want to enable it? What is the threshold for every event? Because I think there is this possibility of saying you only care about events that took longer than n nanoseconds. Yeah, so that's the sort of things that you can do with JFR, and that's about it. I mean, you can consume the events either programmatically or via Java Mission Control. I think there's even an integration of JFR with OpenTelemetry, but I haven't tried that yet. So maybe there is some sort of nice UI version that you can look at, like this waterfall sort of version.
Yeah. Well, you can always like do the recording and then open up in your that like browser.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
No, that's pretty cool.
Okay. So I probably forgot something, but let's see what there is in ORM 6.5. Because ORM 6.5 is almost finished, actually. We're at the finish line at this point. So I can share something with you, which is quite certain already. So the next thing is insert on conflict. So this is the upsert feature, insert or update that I've been talking about before, which is now also available for HQL and JPA criteria. So you can formulate this sort of logic where you say, hey, I want to insert into that entity, because that's something that ORM supported for a long time already. But in addition to that, you can also say now that when there is a conflict on the ID column or on some other unique column, then please do nothing or do an update on X columns. Then there's also joins in DML, so update and delete statements. That's also very nice because people were not realizing that they were using joins in the past when they just typed association dot some attribute, because that's doing an implicit join, and in the past resulted in some just wrong SQL or SQL that only worked on H2, stuff like that. But now all of this is going to work fine, and you can even like write an explicit join in your DML. And there will be some more presentations about these new features. So this is just a quick outlook. Yeah, you can specify fractional seconds for temporal columns. That was quite a missing feature. Then values are generated more efficiently by using database native features. You can configure the query cache layout to store just the most vital information. And what is next? We plan on supporting nested arrays. That's something that we cannot do right now. We plan on ensuring that ORM.xml, or let's say our extension to ORM.xml, can fully replace HBM.xml. Because HBM.xml was introduced in a time when we named types. And at this point, we don't name types anymore. We rather have constituent parts. We have a Java type name and we have a JDBC type code. And then we maybe have some additional configuration. But this what we called name types before is actually just some special configurations of these constituent parts. We're fully embracing that, and that's why we want to get rid of HBM.xml and rather focus on on ORM.xml, which is an extension to the JPA standard, which also makes it easier for us because then we don't have to maintain two schemas. We just have to ensure that the schema that we extend from is up to date. And then, ORM7 might even remove that HBM.xml. We don't know. Maybe users can cry out for that now. They don't want to migrate yet, or it doesn't work yet to migrate to ORM.xml.
My first contribution to Hibernate was the HBM to Java code, the stuff that takes HBM and loads the configuration and then generates the code. Does that work for ORM actually too? So does, because I know that in all, at least before, HBM can do things that ORM XML can't. But I guess that's what you're saying, that you're going to ensure that ORM XML can do the same thing.
Well, I mean, at this point, I think annotations are strictly more capable, except for one thing, which is dynamic models. So if you don't have a Java model, then obviously you will need some sort of XML to map that structure.
Yeah.
And we extended ORM.xml to be capable in that regard. But of course, there's maybe some rough edges here and there, or maybe we're missing some extensions here and there. But overall, we believe that ORM.xml, or our extension to ORM.xml, is capable enough that it could replace HBM.xml already. That's also why we're considering dropping it even for ORM7 now. And then, I mean, we're going to drop some deprecated APIs. We started with ORM6. We changed some default behaviors. We removed some APIs. We did the switch to Jakarta, to the Jakarta namespace in ORM6. And now with ORM7, there might be new breakages, like the removal of deprecated APIs. So please, people, don't use deprecated APIs. It's going to bite you. Yeah, and then there is this Java 17 requirement coming from Jakarta Persistence 3.2. There's quite a few things.
Cool.
All right.
Cool.
Awesome.
That's about it.
Well, I don't think we got all the questions here, I think. So, time. Anyone else in here? I don't see any else.
No, I think we got them all.
Yeah, that's cool. Well,
and then,
cool.
As we said, if there's more, there's always sort of Zulip and Discord and Jira, not Jira.
And you'll be here next week too, right? For the vector search AI.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That'll be fun. Cool.
I hope it will be fun.
What?
I mean, it's AI after all. Everyone's hyped about it, no?
Yeah. All perfect. It solves all problems. Stop working. So no. Awesome. Well, Christian, thanks you again, and let's call it a day. And
thank you for having me. Yeah. See you next week.
Cool. Thanks all.
Bye-bye.